the biggest thing is if you say yes to something that's not truly worth your time, then you might become a slave to that decision. Things will get blocked or stopped just because, oh, what happens after this? Do we have infrastructure? Do we have oh, is their team ready for this kind of volume? And I love asking that type of question of well, if we create this problem, they'll fix it. If there's too many leads, they'll figure it out.
It's a good problem to have.
It's really almost solve the problem that's staring you in the face and figure out the rest as you get to them.
Welcome to the show, Matt. I'm so glad to have you on PivotMe today.
Thanks so much, April. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into your business and some success principles that we've discussed offline and talk about optimization versus innovation. But first, Matt, I would love for you to talk about how you got into this type of work.
Yeah. So long story. And again, nice work on the last couple of podcasts. You've had some hitters on here. And that's kind of what brought us together, that whole innovation versus optimization thing. A bit about me. This is my second time on the podcast now. Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here. So about 7 years ago now, it's crazy to think it was 7 years ago, I was in college. I was a sophomore, and my dorm mates from the year before were starting a startup. I was struggling to get a job at the time, and I figured, well, you know what? Who needs a job? I'll just help this company to get off the ground. And I learned everything I could about marketing, about tech. I learned how to build websites. I learned how to run ads. And while our company wasn't super successful, it led me to consulting and marketing by the time I was a senior in college. Worked with companies all over the world, Japan, Israel. I worked with companies in London, and then graduated college and started TRUVenture Marketing. Started True focused on really the type of marketing that got results, data-driven marketing, things that I thought would really add value for startups. And had a couple of major successes right out the gate. Helped, was really fortunate, had a great client list, and wound up growing a few early stage startup companies from doing a few $1,000s a month to doing a few $100,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of the origin story. Along the way, was able to build a team. Now we have a really awesome heavy hitting team that kind of mixes performance marketing and product marketing. We work mostly with software companies. Let me know if I'm getting too much in the weeds, but
you're good. You're good. So
yeah.
I do want to ask a question. So Matt, you have enjoyed success. I'm just going to say it at a pretty young age. Did you struggle at all with sort of the mindset of stepping into, okay, I'm in college and now I'm consulting these companies and now I'm working with these tech startups. Now we've had a lot of success. We've helped them have a lot of success. How did you manage your mindset through that?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. So early on, before I started True, I was doing this consulting. I had a business partner, and this business partner, he's a genius. I have to give it to him. And I often attributed my success before I started this company to having that partnership with this person. And when eventually we had to split the company up because we just had a lot of different ideas of where to go. And when two people can't agree on one direction, there's just you become stuck. And so it got bad enough. We had to split up the company, and I left. And almost within 2 weeks, it was a big leap of faith of is it my success? Is it this person's success?
Yeah.
Making that leap. And within a week, I had clients. Within a week, my reputation and my own success started showing me that it was my success. And that was a big confidence boost. But it wasn't I just thought, oh, now I can do anything. It was more my ceiling went higher. And eventually I had to grow into that. And then there were other moments I think my whole career has been I grow and I grow and I grow and I hit this plateau.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or maybe I hit a ceiling, since we're on one analogy, let's stick to it. But I
Yeah,
hit a
we're
ceiling and
committed
then,
to it.
exactly. And then I think it's usually like some eye-opening event happens, whether, oh, we just had these amazing results, that ceiling goes up. And I would say, yeah, I've struggled with like limiting myself and limiting my mindset. I think everyone does at some degree, but if like I've taken big steps to kind of raise that ceiling and think more is possible.
Yeah. Was there any point, like, where was this defining moment where you go, oh, I've really got something here? Like, this is a business. This isn't just something I'm doing after hours or on the weekends.
Yeah. So there was, when I first started this company 4 years ago, a little more than 4 years ago, I knew that I had to make money. I had to make enough to pay my bills,
Mm-hmm.
or I had to get a job. There was no backup. There's no fallback. And my window was like 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't give myself much time. Um, Fortunately, I was like consulting. So I was like, I can just work hourly for, $50 an hour or something if
Mm-hmm.
I need to, and pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's like how I got started. The defining moment, I think, was when we took on a project that is a small retainer, but a heavy performance based incentive that
Mm-hmm.
like they were paying us a couple bucks a lead. And we were running Facebook ads for them. And this is like 2 months into starting True. We have this incentive bonus, a couple bucks a lead, and our Facebook ads just started taking off. Like we started generating, 10 leads a day, 20 leads a day, 100 leads a day, and it became a few hundred leads a day. And so it was like we had a couple of weeks there where I was like making really, really good money on this project. And I was stretched to my capacity, to get to the couple hundred leads a day. I through that process had to bring in design resources, hired a designer who's still with us, and wound up scaling up a bit of a team around it. But like that was the defining moment of, man, like this is starting to make good money, and it's enough that I can hire a team and actually grow into something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was kind of defining, was, just structuring a really good, fair agreement with a client that was mutually beneficial, um, and just doing good work and like watching the results kind of blossom.
So when that was happening, at any point, the leads start increasing. Did you
Mhm.
go, wait, this is too much. I'm scaling too fast. Maybe I need to throw it
Oh
into
gosh,
neutral.
the good questions. A couple times I did. Yeah. The struggle was that we had such a good client, actually. The CMO of this company that I was working for pushed me, pushed us with like, this person had a background in this kind of advertising, and also was really driven as a startup founder, and would push us to like, no, just keep doing it, keep growing, keep spending more money, keep scaling, like we're going to get through this. And that, almost like became a mentor in some ways, and showed me that to get past discomfort, you almost just got to face it and drive through.
Yeah. It reminds me of the quote of the whole, who was it that said that? Oh gosh, I just blanked on who it is, but like say yes and then figure out how to deliver on the back end. Was that Steve
Mm,
Jobs? Anyways, always say yes to new opportunities and you're like,
mm.
all right, I'll say yes to new business and then figure out how
Mhm.
to deliver on the back end.
I love that concept. Like sometimes we'll face, um, like sometimes things will get blocked or stopped just because, oh, what happens after this?
Mhm.
Do we have infrastructure? Do we have like, oh, is their team ready for this kind of volume? And
Mhm.
I love asking that type of question of like, well, if we create this problem, they'll fix it. Like if there's too many leads, they'll figure it out.
It's a good
Like
problem to have.
it's, yeah, like really almost like, solve the problem that's staring you in the face
Mhm.
and figure out the rest as you get to them.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about like you going through college, you're getting this particular grade, you're working with tech startup, then you've got a business, you pivot
Yeah.
away from the business partner, you create another business. So you lead people. At no point is that, leadership training. That's not what you were studying in school. You had to take on a lot of new skill sets in running the business that you have today. How did you do that? How did you navigate that?
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's been a lot of like learning throughout my career. I'm still learning all the time. And I've asked a lot of people for assistance and support in leadership. When I first started, it was me managing and working, collaborating with one person, which is really easy for me to do. Two people, became a little bit more of a stretch. And at like the 3 to 4 people size team, things start to change. I think like you get a little bit out of the day-to-day work and become more of a manager. And so like I've really just taken it one step at a time. But I read a lot of like first round review. I did establish like early on, we really focused on culture. What are our core values? There's a great book I read called The Core Value Equation. I have it up on my bookshelf there somewhere, but I can't remember the author's name right now. The Core Value Equation was a great one.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Read that book, talked to, I wound up getting a mentor who's talked me through some operational things, supported me there. But it's
talk to us about the mentor. Did you know you needed a mentor? Did the mentor present itself? Talk to us about that process.
Yeah, such a good, another good question. Yeah, so about 2 or 3 years ago, came across, well, not even. So we started working with Edon a few years back, and I was working with Doug Irwin. A lot of our Nevada people know Doug. Shout out to him. But we were working with Doug, and I had a lot of conversations with him just over the years. And like he had, without being an official mentor, coached me through a lot of things. And just about at the start of this year, found out Doug was actually launching his own coaching business, and I started working with him. Like it was it was pretty obvious to me that like it was a good decision. And I already had a really high regard for him, and yeah, it helped me through a lot.
Yeah. So we've talked about mentorship and coaching. Same, there's a little bit of nuance there, but we talked about a lot on PivotMe. So looking back, what's some of the things that have changed in your business by taking on a mentor?
Yeah. So right off the bat, one of them was like actually challenging me to grow and challenging myself. So we had a huge opportunity in front of us at the beginning of this year. Actually, it was like towards the end of last year. And so there was like some strategy that like right off the bat made the whole mentorship thing a revenue positive experience, just because I was able to ask really tough questions of like about pricing a certain client or pricing a certain project, and like, hey, how would you go about this? Like I'm probably going to need to hire someone to fulfill this work because it's so much work. And was able just to bounce ideas off of this. And I'm a sole founder. Like I own 100% of this company. And so oftentimes I don't have someone to go to like talk strategy. And so right off the bat, it was like, oh, I can just run pricing by this. And so there was the obvious in your face, helped with some business decisions. And then also, sorry, going back to the question was, how has this supported you?
Yeah. What's changed in your business since bringing on a mentor?
So a lot's changed. Just, I think day to day, like having a better, healthier mindset, asking better questions. Like I've been coached to ask better questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes, with a coaching arrangement, I'll have a conversation with my coach, and there's usually like a lot of ideas come up, and many of them are applicable to me that I can also just pass right on as a leader to the rest of my team. And so it's almost like being around somebody who's been in a leadership position, who's leading me in some ways, has given me tools that I can just take. Hey, this was really good for me. I can pass that on to the other people at our team.
So I heard he helps with pricing, some pricing strategy at the beginning, improved mindset. It sounds like it helped you become even a better leader,
Yeah,
and was
absolutely.
revenue positive right away.
Within like a month or so, yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Right.
amazing. Uh,
The pricing thing was kind of like a um yeah, it might have actually been before we hired him. I'm not sure. It was like I had this really big opportunity and wasn't quite sure how to go about pricing it. And like it was
sure,
a really complex thing of like, oh, well, we can like they want us to do so much work in such a short period of time that like there's a high likelihood that either I will have to dedicate my own time
hmm
at the cost of our existing clients to this project, or I
hmm
can go and hire someone new. Either way, it's not a standard agreement for us. It was like
sure,
such an accelerated project, and so it was a lot for me to digest. And so was able to speak with my coach and just we figured out a really smart way to go about that pricing that was fair to us, was fair to the client, was fair to our other clients also.
sure,
That's just really important.
yeah.
Running an agency, you're in some ways selling time for money,
hmm
as much as we try to avoid that. And so there's all these things we have to balance, and just having somebody to talk that through was helpful.
And I think that's a good reminder. Like you said, hey, I'm the solo founder. So
Mhm.
whether you're the solo founder, you're the head of an organization, one of the challenges I've seen over and over again, whether that's a conversation we have on the podcast with the people that I've worked with, if there's no one to bounce ideas off of, because sometimes when you're the head of an organization, if you have
Yeah,
questions, concerns, you can't always bring those to your team because you're
yeah,
trying to lead them and you're giving them confidence and faith in the
yeah,
journey. The truth is, those of us who are leading organizations, every once in a while we're like,
yeah,
pretty sure we're going to the right way, but man, I wish I could ask somebody else. And
yeah.
I'm glad that you pointed that out because, if you're listening right now, if you're a pivoter listening and you're like, yes, I make decisions all day and I hope they're right, but I wish I had someone to have that conversation. Sometimes it's a formal agreement between a mentor and a coach.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's an informal agreement, but someone that you can kind of talk through the challenges of your business, the opportunities of your business. It's an invaluable piece to growing your business.
I would say, and I'm in a similar position with doing marketing work. Some of it is more strategy and consulting. It's like we're too close to the problem
Mhm.
oftentimes. That's the core issue. It's like you're inside a jar and you're trying to look to see what's on the label, but you can't. You're inside the jar. Like you can't turn
Sure.
your head around that. So having an outside perspective is just like this crystal clear. Hey, here's how you're positioned, or here maybe this is my point of view on this thing you're dealing with.
hmm So, Matt, let's actually talk about the work that you do. So, talk to us today, the work that you do, the kind of clients that you work with.
Yeah. So the bulk up until about June of this year, July of this year, we became really focused on performance marketing, on pay-per-click advertising on Google, on Facebook,
hmm
LinkedIn. But we've always had this component of what we do that is landing page design, email marketing, and like designing user interfaces and things like that, like designing apps, like that kind of thing. We've always done that kind of work.
hmm
What happened in June was iOS 14.5, which is this Apple like privacy rollout. It
hmm
really affected our business. And we thought it was going to affect us more. So we kind of had this strong knee jerk reaction of like, okay, we need to reposition ourselves.
hmm
Um, and in some ways we did. We began focusing more on the landing pages and on the what we call UX UI, like the user experience. Um, we still do all that performance marketing. Actually, we've done really well. We have a new performance marketing manager, Sarah, who's doing an amazing job there. And like some of our campaigns have just done amazing lately. But um, lately, like we've been doing this product as marketing, like working with the engineers at these software companies
hmm
to design like, oh, hey, if we add this link here, like a share button, then it'll make the product more shareable. Or like,
hmm
so we've been doing a lot of work to like build marketing into the product so that the users become the biggest source of growth for a company compared to like just ads are so expensive and so shaky sometimes. Like they're an amazing avenue and we are good at it. But having now like the landing page, the product is marketing arm and the UX UI, and we have a really, Sergio's amazing at that kind of stuff. Having that now we have like this 1-2 punch of like, okay, we have the work that's always going to be valuable as a very long tail effect. That product is marketing stuff. And then we have performance marketing, which is like you turn on the valve and it, you get some water coming in. But as soon as you stop spending money on it, that hose is going to shut off.
Sure.
So now we have kind of the 1-2 punch.
The iOS update that happened, it did really shake everyone in the community.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be terrible. And it's like, well, it's kind of terrible. We're not sure. And, now the dust is settling. But you said you had a knee-jerk reaction that the pivot that you made because of that, did ultimately that serve you? Did you find other ways to turn on the tap, it sounds like?
Yeah, I think it served us. I think, one, it caused us to really question who we were. And like Jay, when you had Jay on the show, he mentioned the whole innovation versus optimization thing. Well, before the pivot, like we had almost started to identify as performance marketing. And most of our billings were coming from performance marketing. And so all of our other work that I actually really like doing, like the UX UI, the landing pages, that stuff had almost been put on the back burner. The knee-jerk reaction, like there was probably 2 weeks where you could tell we were really disorganized. But it helped us to shift from really optimizing around performance marketing and creating all this process around performance marketing to becoming a more innovative firm once again, which is super valuable for us.
Yeah. Talk about how that's valuable to your clients as well, being a more innovative firm.
Yeah. So like one thing that's happened is we've gotten more like, we've really been focused on data and speed. Like when we were focused on performance, that was what was making us money. And we thought that, it was making our clients money. But we had developed so much process around it that every time we tried to throw in a different project, the different projects would be a little bit slow. And like, sometimes they wouldn't get as much attention as like the ads and stuff like that. When we shook everything up, we changed how we kick off the week. Like now every week we start by looking at each client's whole marketing funnel. And I'm not sure how, I might be getting too much in the weeds, but we look at like, oh, how many visitors are they getting? How many of those visitors become leads? How many of those leads become, sales demos, and how many of those sales demos become, and we look at the whole funnel and we actually have it all mapped out on a Miro board. And we pick 2 or 3 areas like, hey, these conversion rates are low, or, oh man, there's a stark drop off, or this email's underperforming. We have all the emails mapped in this whole customer journey too, of like click-through rates, open rates. And we have it all just visualized on a pretty much a digital whiteboard of like every single piece of the customer journey. And now we on Mondays, we look at that and we have all the data and we just pick, hey, these are their biggest drop-off points right now. Let's focus on those. And so we've become data-driven. We've created sprints around fixing those problems. And so we've shortened timelines to like do these projects. We've gotten more clarity on what to work on for the client. And then we've just created this culture around like execution and speed and working on the right things. I think our clients, like so far, it took us a little bit to figure out the right process. Like we were a little disorganized making this switch. But now like the results are starting to really come in and it's just looking great.
Yeah. You know what? I want to really highlight this for the pivoters listening right now. So the iOS update was a huge thing in the digital marketing world. Like this was really, really big. And it felt like to a lot of people that the rug was getting pulled out from underneath. If a lot of your business was based on Facebook ads, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but this kind of dumped the puzzle blocks upside down. At the time, it didn't feel like people were going to grow out of this. A lot of people were like, oh crap, this is where our revenue comes from. This is how we can perform.
Yeah.
But ultimately, as Matt's story just illustrated, is it made his company better. It made the offering to his clients better. He's providing a better experience, a better service to the clients. That's throughout the industry. So whenever we have big industry changes, it feels like, oh my God, there goes my revenue stream. Oh my God, that's how we get customers. Whatever that change is, it's these pivots that we go through. We get to choose what it means for our business. And yes, one tap may have shut off, or maybe the water's just not coming out, but the opportunity for other taps to be open also comes out of this. We don't make these big innovations. Typically, we don't make them unless our back's against the wall. This iOS update put a lot of people's backs against the wall. And some people are like, I'm out. I'm not going to run these ads anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. But Matt was an example of someone who says, no, we're here to stay. How do we pivot? Okay, things got a little messy for a week or two, but we're going to pivot and ultimately make this a better experience. So if you're facing something in your industry like this, maybe where you got clients from has changed. Maybe there's been legislation. There's some change that happens. Know that door closes, the window opens. The problem is we stare so long at the freaking door that closed and we're like, oh, what am I going to do? That we don't turn around and go, oh, this window's open. Sometimes you got to jam the window open. But kudos to you for making a really positive experience out of this iOS update ultimately.
Thanks, April. Yeah, such a good take on what this market's been through. Like every digital marketer I know has been affected. Some have really been hurt, and like we've had a kind of roller coaster year ourselves. Of like had some amazing months, had some down months, had some amazing months, and we're able to hire some amazing people. Unfortunately, we still have them, but like it's been a roller coaster year.
Sure.
And to top it off with iOS 14.5 and big industry changes, market forces that we have no control over. Like it's definitely tested like my leadership and made me better. I think it's tested everyone who's on our team who started getting used to doing things a certain way. Is now like a little paranoid of what's next. Like, how are we going to be pivoting next month?
Where's the next shoe dropping?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like one door closes, don't stare at it. Like go around it, find another way. It's like, I think that the best way through discomfort, like the easiest way through uncomfortable situations is just action.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And we tend to not want to do that. We want to analyze to an action. But take action. I think expand on that, Matt, a little bit and tell us how that's applied in your business too. Like maybe specifically to this iOS update, but talk about how action really can be the solution to that.
Yeah. So like, I think that so many people get caught up in planning. And I heard it recently. The CEO of this company called Mutiny. I think her name is I might be mispronouncing, but Jala. I can't remember her last name. But Mutiny is a tech company. They just raised like a couple dozen $1 million on the way to something big, I think. But anyways, the CEO puts it as being stuck in the basement of like when you're stuck planning, thinking about something, talking to other experts. It's like, you're in the basement. Well, you just got to get out of the basement and start actually doing things. Speed has been, and like the ability to make decisions quickly and act on them has probably been one of the biggest driving factors in my professional career.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. And why I say that is that I've just never really had time to plan. And sure, maybe there's some other way that like I could have done things better. Of course, there always are, but I feel like one thing that's really helped me is being able just to make decisions quickly, act on them, create a plan around them, and charge forward.
That's huge. It's and Matt, maybe you know this or not, but that dovetailed perfectly into our topic from 2 weeks ago, which was that speed of execution is something that I've noticed as a hallmark of success for entrepreneurs. Like I had a client ask me, what's the one thing that you've noticed in all of them? And I was like, they're really fast to execute. Like they'll have 70% of the data that they need and they're like, screw it, let's go ahead with it. And I see that over and over again. A good friend of mine, he's the president of Creative Works, Armando Lanuti, he said the other day, he's incredibly fast executor. And I said, what's the key to that, Armando? And I love what he said. He goes, I don't believe that any of my moves are fatal.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, that's so good. He's like, so whatever it is, if it messes up, I'll do it again. But I don't believe that any decision I'm about to make is fatal. So there's always a do-over.
It's that whole idea between two-way doors and one-way doors of like, if you have a two-way door, you can walk in it and you can walk back out it. And that happens to us like all the time. We make decisions that it wasn't the perfect decision, or maybe we started testing something and we see that our assumptions early on need to change because we learn from this experiment, and then you walk back out of it. Nothing, and there's no harm other than maybe a little bit of lost time, but you could have spent that time just trying to make a decision and then eventually came to the same realization. And so
that's the two-way door. So talk to us about the one-way door.
Well, the one-way door it's a decision you make. And these are the big decisions of starting that whole new business or quitting your job. Like if you quit your job to start a business, well, that's a decision that you can't just go and erase and go back, right? So it's a one-way door. Those decisions require more time, more thought, time in the basement. Like actually, before I make any big decision like that, I like to go to all the people that really I find like I consider mentors or I really respect, and I go on like an advice tour before the one-way door decisions. But I try to do it quickly. I don't dwell on it still, but like I think the ability to recognize the difference between a one-way door and a two-way door, and then on the two-way door things, and even getting like into more specifics of like, is this a decision that is going to have months of implications or weeks? Like, is this a decision that deserves 5 minutes of thinking or 20 seconds of thinking? Like, we're always making decisions, and the ability just to weigh quick decisions versus like, oh, this needs more thought. Maybe we should sleep on this for a day because it is a big decision. But like being able to bucket those and then act quickly on the things that need a decision now, and saying, oh, I'm going to do that right now, or I'm going to do that today, instead of saying, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Like that has made a major impact on our whole team's ability to move fast.
I love this idea of deciding whether this is a one-way door or a two-way door. And if it's a two-way door, you go on an advice tour. I love this idea. This
one-way door. One-way door, maybe go on an advice tour.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One-way door, you go on an advice tour and get all the data points. But even then, you're still capping on like, all right, I can't stay in the basement long. I'm going to give a certain amount of time that I can gather data, and then I got to make a decision. Matt, were you always this fast of a decision maker?
Yes and no. Like I definitely have times where I feel slow, or like maybe I'm not in the thick of it as much, but I think I pick up on when that's the case and I try to correct it. I love when like things are moving fast. I feel like it just gives me energy, and like I see how the clients respond to it. And like we had a client the other day, like, oh, you guys are already doing that? Like, oh, you're already here. Like when they're trying to play catch up with our team, it's like the best.
Gives you a high.
Yeah. But I guess I'm working on it. It's a muscle that I have to keep flexing and like practicing. And there's definitely been times when we were pivoting out of iOS, performance marketing to doing what we're doing now, like this more well-rounded approach. Like that whole process was so clunky for us that our whole organization got pretty slow for a few weeks, and it definitely showed. But we started to work on it, and now like I feel like we're back to firing on all eight.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a calculated risk that you knowingly took, because if we're just trying to maintain status quo, you never would have had that kind of explosive growth afterwards. If you're like, no, we got to keep stay on the same track and do the same thing and manage the same level of performance, you would have never done this. So I'm glad that you took the time to go, well, we're going to have to sacrifice some productivity for a couple weeks and things are going to look a little messy, but then we come out of it and we're at a totally different place and have a much more well-rounded offering, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I think it also like future proofs us a little more because like we all know that like Facebook marketing, Google marketing, like advertising, those platforms, they're probably not going to be around forever, or they're always going to be changing, and you're kind of at the whim of those platforms when that's your primary growth method. And like most companies realize and recognize that it's dangerous to be reliant on it
Yeah.
as a growth channel. And when our business model had become so dependent on those platforms that it was a big risk for us to be that way.
It's
And
it's like you have this huge like well of water right in front of you and you're like saying, well, that well's not going to be there forever. You got to go out and find your other water. But everyone's like, but no, the water's right here. I don't want to go find another well.
yeah. And so the iOS 14.5 change was definitely a kick. And it was a defining moment that showed us we needed to go redefine ourselves to have more robust offerings and it would make us more resilient. And it did. And like, what's interesting is we had made the decision that we needed to go this way back in February or March, but it took iOS 14.5
Yeah, it
for
had
us to
become
act on
painful.
that decision. So I guess
Yeah.
as far like it reinforces how hard it is to really practice what I'm preaching of acting fast and making decisions fast, like quickly,
Yeah.
because we had made that decision and we just were so comfortable that well was in front of us. And fortunately we knew what we needed to do. The transition was of like coming up with a plan was easy, but acting still had some hiccups.
We were just talking on my last call about being comfortable is about the most dangerous place we can be because there's no urgency, right? There's no urgency to take action. We're like, I'm comfortable. Things are good enough. And that's often the killer of innovation and, quick growth because it's okay. Our back gets against the wall. When our back is put against the wall, like with the iOS update, that's when we're like, all right, it's time to take action. It's nice that you guys already saw that had to happen and had a plan in place. Matt, talk to us about, so the other marketing companies in your space, tell on them. What are they doing wrong?
Oh man, that's such a so the big thing, actually, there's a lot of great companies. First off, I'm not going to bash on other marketing companies just because like even in Reno we have some amazing talent and stuff like that. What makes us different
There we go.
is now it's becoming more and more our focus on being able to work with product, like being able to work with the engineering teams on, at these startups. And then also like we love putting skin in the game. Like we'll make agreements all day long where we cut our upfront pricing in half and put it, or maybe not in half. I don't want your viewers to be like, oh, cut your pricing in half. I have like good incentive, but we'll put an incentive package on it of, hey, we want either a proportion of new bit, like maybe it's revenue from the new customers, like so month one revenue, if that's easily trackable and you have subscription business, and then we'll do like a portion of that, or we'll do a per lead, like pay per lead kind of thing on top of our normal agreement. So we have a performance aspect of like, yeah, we'll put skin in the game. And then part two, we'll get our hands dirty. We'll work with your engineers. And like right now, if you look at in-house marketing at software companies in general, they're really close. They're working with the product managers, they're working with the engineers, they're working, it's like this growth function. And it's really hard to find an agency right now that actually embeds themselves with engineering or product so that the whole company can actually design itself around growth. And so that's what we're working on right now, is getting better at that. And we also have like our more standard, we work with startups most of the times, but we also have this offering for multifamily, like apartment owners or managers, it's kind of a whole, it's still within True, and but like that's kind of the other thing that we're working on right now is we've done some work with apartment property manager, like an investor who has a few hundred buildings in the Bay Area, or apartments in the Bay Area, student housing, and we applied some of our same marketing techniques from startups
Mhm.
over that industry, and it just like went through the roof. Had some amazing successes. So now we're actually entertaining more opportunities like that as well, of like trying to take our model and apply it to that business. And what we've seen is just that whole apartment marketing space is really outdated. It's kind of like, oh, I have AppFolio or my property management software, and I
So
click a
true.
button that says do marketing. Well, that just puts yourself in the same pool as everyone else. And you're
Mhm.
sending all your traffic to Zillow or apartments.com instead of sending it to your own website. And so what we've been doing there is like helping people actually create their own web presence and run like Facebook, Google ads, run like geo targeted ads so that people can actually own their own traffic.
Mhm.
Um, and it's really the same. It's funny. It's the same type of marketing that we do for startup companies. And we just apply it over to this whole multifamily home market. And I think there's like a ton of opportunity for us there, but it's kind of in its infancy. We have done 2 projects in it. We're kicking off our 3rd project in it this month. And then we have like a little bit of other interest from newer companies, but that's the second thing we have.
So what I heard is tech companies, software companies, and now the new focus is multi-family. If someone's listening that are in those three buckets, definitely listen to what Matt's got to say. We're going to put the link on where to connect with Matt in the show notes, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But I wanted to really dial in the people that you specialize in. I know that what you do is much broader than those 3 areas, but I know that you've spent a lot of time in those areas and really understand how to drive results there.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of synergies there. Most of the tech and software companies that we work with are in real estate, property technology companies,
Sure.
real estate technology companies. So like I think I might have undersold that aspect of how much work we do in like real estate tech. But at the same time, we work with the University of Nevada on some things,
Mm-hmm.
like the more innovative programs. We work with their Department of Research and Innovation. And we've worked, like my background, I've worked with a lot of different types of companies. So it gives us a broader view. It kind of widens the aperture of what we can look at and help. Like, but we don't take on like most projects. I'll have a conversation with everyone, like with anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but don't take on projects with anyone.
Sure.
We're pretty picky there of like, do we really think we can add value or not?
Yeah. One thing I've got to mention here, Matt, is that separate from your focus in the business, one thing that I've noticed, and you did it right here on this interview, you've got such an abundance mentality. So when I said, all right, tattle on the software company or tattle on the marketing companies, what are they doing wrong? You immediately pivoted my question and said, let me tell you how we're different. And I've noticed that theme every time we've talked. You and I have sat in many meetings. You're never talking about what your competitors do. You're in a class of one. And I really see this as kind of this byproduct of, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this as a byproduct of this abundance mentality. Like there's plenty of business for all of us. There's a lot of A players out there, and there's a big enough slice of pie for all of us.
So true. Like so true. Because I could spend my time like trying to bash competitors, and at the end of the day, it's not going to help me out, and it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
help them out. If anything, like it might just tarnish a relationship we have with like another
For
founder or
sure.
agency. But yeah, no, we like I appreciate that you called that out. I really like everything you said. I really believe in. Like there's a ton of opportunity out there. I think that oftentimes like we're the team to help people. We also partner with like Laxalt MacGyver, which well now L&M, now Commence Studio. They just rebranded. And they're like an amazing branding studio here,
Oh
and they
yeah.
also do design work, and there's some crossover, but like
Mm-hmm.
I believe so firmly in how good they are at design, and it's like almost artistic design and branding that we send them business all the time. And vice versa. They send us business all the time. So it's
Mhm.
for performance marketing and for, other types of projects. So like we have really good synergies with other agencies here in town. We're now talking with Synap, Reno development company, and like now we're starting to, like, we've kind of vetted them, and now they're our chosen dev team. If we're looking for dev resources, we'll send people to Synap.
Mhm.
So I'll have to tell them that I gave them a shout out on here.
You're going to want to hear this.
Yeah,
No, I just have noticed that theme, and it's a different approach to business when you're like, there's enough for all of us. Like I'm going to do what I do best and what my team does best. We're going to continue with that. And there's going to be enough for all of us. And there's no need to, take down the other guy or even look at what our competitor's doing. Like just be in your lane and continue to get better and better. And, the business will be there.
Not sure how you feel about Gary Vee, and like, I'm not a diehard fan,
Yeah.
but I definitely take note. Like he has some good, there's
Oh
some
yeah.
good,
He's a good marketer.
He's a good marketer. There's like this one quote he has of, there's two ways to build the tallest building in town. One is you build the tallest building in town. Two is you spend all your time, you build an average sized building, and then you spend the rest of your time trying to tear down the rest of the buildings in town that are taller than you.
That is good. I had not heard that before.
Yeah.
And how many people do the latter? Like how many of us just fall into that trap of trying to do the latter instead of just focus on building the tallest building?
And if you're not working on yourself and trying to build your own building, well, you're like, you're obviously working on the wrong things. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's such a distraction, and it's almost toxic. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I find myself, and it's pretty rare, like we had a competitor running Google ads for us for our keywords. And I just, with my mindset, it's like, for a second, there's like not an hour even, there's 10 or 15 minutes where I was pretty bitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why are they running Google ads for us? And then I told Brian, and we looked at them and we're like, wait a second, it's for TRUVenture Marketing. They probably just are running Google ads for marketing. Like and we're getting thrown in there. So like, I was bitter though for a second, and it like felt toxic that I even felt that way. I wound up giving it a few hours, and like, so that I wouldn't have any like emotion in it, I reached out to their CMO, sent a really nice message. Hey, like, notice you're running Google ads for our keywords. I'm sure it's an accident, but like, we're all about win-win opportunities over here. Like we love partnering with other agencies, and like, we're not about when like, basically we're not about this, like this whole kind of mindset. And so like, basically sent a really nice email over, and within a day it was all like, they took all of them down.
Wow.
It was an accident. And I feel like perspective sometimes, like we get too caught up in our own worlds, or like we fail to see the other point of view. And so that can be really like, it can actually can lead to negative outcomes of like not giving things time to settle in, or
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. So one question I do want to ask you about, so we talked a little bit about mindset. One of the things that entrepreneurs really struggle with is self-sabotage. Well, let me rephrase this. People in general struggle with self-sabotage. So the big opportunity and we sabotage it. Maybe the business is scaling too fast, we can sabotage it. Our identity runs counter to it. Have you struggled with self-sabotage? And if so, how did you get past it?
Yeah. So I think that everyone struggled with a little bit of self-sabotage, right?
Oh yeah.
I've done so in a few ways, and it might not be what you think. The biggest way that I self-sabotage is I say yes to the wrong things. And the second biggest is I can procrastinate sometimes, especially if there's not a fire under my ass for something.
Yeah, for sure.
Say that on PivotMe, but
you can. We get the E. We're going to earn the E today.
But I really think that with my abundance mindset that you mentioned, like I also am prone to saying yes to too many things. And sometimes you can, if you say yes to the wrong things, you're going to fail by succeeding. And Warren Buffett says it the best is like, or maybe it was Charlie Munger who said it. It was something along the lines of, the key to his success was the word no. But
Ooh.
really paraphrasing, but really, there's so many opportunities for all of us. And if you like fail to see opportunity, then, or fail to have opportunity, then like, I don't even want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that there's so much opportunity. Like when I was in high school, I wanted to start a mechanic shop, and like, who knows where I would have been if I said yes to that one.
Mm-hmm.
If I started just working on people's cars, maybe it would have been successful, maybe not. But like the biggest thing is, if you say yes to something that's not truly worth your time, then
Mm-hmm.
you might become a slave to that decision. And that it actually costs you all the other opportunities that you might otherwise have had.
That's
And so
so good.
that's the biggest, I think, way that I self-sabotage. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to think really carefully, like about, if we're going to take on a new client or go in a new direction. Um, and like, sometimes I do say yes to things and I realize I shouldn't have. And it still happens to me all the time, but
Sure.
something that I'm working on is like, so check your yeses.
Yes. I've also heard it phrased as you have to protect your yeses with 1,000 no's.
That's
S-
so powerful.
Same
Yeah.
idea. And the challenge is that as your business gets bigger, the opportunities get bigger and they come more frequently. So you're like, oh, this is an amazing client. This is amazing opportunity. This is amazing, thing that has been laid at our feet, and we want to go after it. And that's the hard part. That's the part that you're not always ready for, is the amount of great opportunities that get stacked up in front of you and having to stay true to your original yes. Like, I would love to do this thing. One of the things I do is I use as a decision filter, is this thing in front of me going to get me closer to my 3-year goal?
Mm. So
And that's hard because you're like, but I really want to do this thing. And you have to sometimes walk away from some pretty amazing things that you're like, it doesn't get me to my 3-year goal. I'm going to have to say no. And it doesn't have to be that particular question, but create some kind of decision filter, because if you're just relying on, well, do I want to do this thing? The opportunities will get sweeter. They'll be harder to say no to.
oh yeah, that's always April with the frameworks. I'm loving it. Like,
So Matt, I've got a couple more questions, but before I go there, real quick, tell the pivoters where they can connect with you.
yeah. So actually the easiest way is probably my LinkedIn profile. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I think of all the social medias, that's the one I use most.
Yeah.
Tells you a little bit about me.
Yes.
LinkedIn URL, linkedin.com/in/Matthew Starrett. So Matthew with 2 M's, Starrett. All one word. And so just, go connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
That's probably the easiest. You can also go to my website, truvm.com, or just email me, matt@truvm.com.
Perfect. And we'll put those in the show notes as well. So we love to close with this question. Are you ready for it, Matt?
Yeah.
If you could tell the world one thing, what would it be?
It's such a good, simple question. I think that it's been said probably a million times, and it's super cliche, but I'd just say, like, be kind. Be kind to other people, be kind to yourself. One of my favorite quotes, and like another quote, I have a lot of favorite quotes, but I think that other people usually have figured out the good things before I have. It's, if I'm only for, actually, I'm going to butcher this. Something along the lines of, if I'm only for myself, who will be, if I'm only for myself, who will be for me? No, I'm butchering this, April. We're going to have to cut.
It's all good. We're cutting it out.
Yeah, we cut this out. I'll just go back to,
You're like, as I always said, shit, what do I always say?
I know, I love it. Thanks, April, for the question. I think that my advice is really cliche. Just be kind to yourself, be kind to others. There's a quote, and it's, if I'm only for myself, what am I? If I'm only for others, who will be for me? If not now, when? It's Hillel, Jewish scholar. I'm like, I never thought I'd be studying Hillel, but came up in another podcast, and I've like really, really dwelt on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, yeah, that's my advice is be kind to yourself and to others.
Yeah. It's simple, but so relevant and absolutely what's needed right now.
Absolutely.
Matt, thank you so much for both sharing the technical piece of your business and insight, but also just your journey and your mindset. I've always admired when we sat through meetings. I've always admired both your abundance mentality, your kindness, the way that you lead your team, and the way that you're really focused on your core values and bringing that both to your team and to your clients. I saw that through and through, and I just thought, man, am I glad that Matt is succeeded, because he's the exact kind of business owner that we need more of.
Thank you so much, April. And like, you're doing an amazing job with PivotMe. Like, it's been a privilege getting to watch you go from literally an idea through, having the seedlings of a business and like watering that, nurturing it, watching it grow. And now the podcast is like taking off. You've had some heavy hitters on here. Definitely like have loved watching it, being a part of it in some ways. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's next.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I hope you loved this video as much as we did. We've set up the next one. So if you're ready to get to that next level, join me in the next video. See you over there.